In the quiet rural fields of Wisconsin, in a small community called Plainfield, something deeply unsettling was hidden behind a weather-worn farmhouse. A man lived seemingly harmlessly, yet when authorities finally crossed his threshold, they found a scene of horror that would shock a nation. Tonight we tell the story of Ed Gein, a case of isolation, obsession, grave robbery, and murder that changed how we understand the darkest corners of the mind. Welcome to True Crime Breakdown. Before we begin, this video deals with graphic content including dismemberment and grave desecration. Viewer discretion is advised. Early life v. Family background. Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1906, in La Crosse, Wisconsin. He was the younger of two sons in a deeply troubled household. His father, George Gein, struggled with alcoholism. His mother, Augusta, was domineering, devoutly religious, and fearful of what she saw as the dangers of women and sexual immorality. The Gein family moved to a remote farm outside Plainfield. Ed left school early, rarely left the property, and his social world was extremely limited. His elder brother Henry died under suspicious circumstances in a fire in 1944, though officially ruled accidental. When Augusta Gein died in 1945, Ed was left alone on the farm. He preserved his mother's room as though she were still present, while the rest of the house fell into decay. His isolation deepened and so did his inner world of obsession. Psychologists believe the intense mother-son dynamic, the religious fear of female sexuality, and the extreme isolation helped form the foundations of his later crimes. The descent v. Early grave robberies. In the years following his mother's death, Gein began spending nights at local cemeteries, exhuming recently buried bodies. He admitted to grave robbing at least 9 female corpses from local graveyards, women whose appearances he believed resembled his mother. He later confessed, "I went into the cemetery, I dug up the grave, I brought the body home." His behavior was characterized by a trance-like state during some of the digs, then returning home empty-handed on others. Gein's home environment reflected the horror of what he was doing: furnishings covered in human skin, skulls mounted as decoration, a macabre shrine to his morbid fantasies. BBC's exposure of some of the findings stunned investigators when eventually his house was searched. The murders. The investigation that ended Gein's reign of horror began with the disappearance of 58-year-old hardware store owner Bernice Wardens on November 15 to 16, 1957. Her son found blood on the floor of the store, the cash register open, and his mother missing. When police searched Gein's farm, they found Warden's body hanging upside down in a shed, decapitated and mutilated. They discovered skull bowls, lampshades made of human skin, and other horrifying artifacts. He also admitted murdering Mary Hogan in 1954, a tavern owner who had disappeared. While officially only convicted of one murder, the scale of his grave robbing and admitted killings mark him among America's most notorious. The nature of the crimes shocked law enforcement, forensic specialists, and the American public. Because of the disturbing details, his farmhouse became a symbol of terror, and the name Ed Gein became synonymous with depravity. Arrest, trial v. institutionalization. Gein was arrested on November 16, 1957. After initial investigations revealed the grave robbing and the killing of Wardens, he was taken into custody. In late 1957 he was found legally unfit to stand trial due to mental illness, diagnosed with schizophrenia. Thus began his long confinement in Wisconsin's mental health institutions. It wasn't until 1968 that a court found him competent, and the judge alone, no jury, found him guilty of Warden's murder on November 14, 1968. Because of his insane state, he was declared not guilty by reason of insanity and sent to a permanent mental hospital rather than prison. Ed Gein remained institutionalized until his death of cancer on July 26, 1984, at age 77. For law enforcement and psychological study alike, his case became a reference point for how pathology, trauma, and social isolation can converge into extreme acts of violence. While Gein's crimes were horrific in themselves, their cultural reverberations have been profound. His story inspired, directly and indirectly, some of the most iconic horror characters in cinema, the mother-obsessed killer in Psycho, 1960, the skin-suit-wearing villain in The Silence of the Lambs, 1991, and even the chainsaw-wielding horror of the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, 1974. In 2025, the third season of the anthology series Monster, the Ed Gein story debuted on Netflix, renewing public fascination with the case. Why has the story endured? Perhaps because it asks unsettling questions. How does someone live among us, seemingly ordinary, while harboring monstrous secrets? What role do upbringing, trauma, and isolation play in shaping such a person? And how does culture respond? By sensationalizing, mythologizing, and feeding its own obsession with evil. For you, as a true crime creator, it's a reminder of the responsibility we bear to handle real suffering with care, to avoid glorification, and to remember the victims behind the horror. What lessons can we draw from the Ed Gein case? First, the power of environment and belief. Gein's upbringing under a controlling mother with extreme religious views, combined with his social isolation, created a psychological pressure cooker. Second, the importance of early intervention. While the full scope of his pathology may never have been stopped early, recognizing the links between trauma, isolation, and deviant fantasy can help prevention efforts. Third, ethical true crime storytelling. When we retell stories like this, we must center victims, avoid sensationalism, and be mindful of how we depict violence. The story of Ed Gein is not just horror for entertainment, it is a human tragedy and a cautionary tale. Thank you for watching. If you found this video useful, please hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Which case would you like us to explore next? Until next time, stay curious, and stay compassionate.